Well, Halifax Town secured their 5th win in 8 league games, beating Bournemouth 1-0 at the weekend. And joining us now to discuss this and much more about the Shaman is the Halifax Courier's Tom Scargill. Hi, Tom.
Hi, mate. You okay?
Yeah, I'm good, thank you. A cracking win against Bournemouth, and what a terrific little run this is turning out to be.
5 wins in 8 league games now, which is fantastic and chalk and cheese compared to how they started in the first few weeks. Bournemouth is probably a game where they wouldn't have won it earlier in the season. It might have been a 0-0 or something, but they've definitely got some momentum behind them now, and the performance levels have gone up, at least a couple of levels from the start of the season. Bournemouth are going to be serious playoff contenders this campaign. They've got some very good players, but Halifax made them look pretty ordinary, really, and deserved the win. And it's great to see Halifax kind of moving up the table now, and if they'd have played and won on Tuesday night, they'd only been 2 points off the playoffs. So the turnaround is remarkable.
Yeah, absolutely, and we'll be getting to that postponed game a little bit later on. What's the difference then, would you say, between performances at this stage of the season compared to earlier then? Because obviously you mentioned in your match report that they're playing with real spirit and determination at the moment, and is that pretty much what was missing at the start of the season?
That was missing badly, yeah. I think a lot of credit has to go to Millington for kind of not sticking to his guns and changing things when they've needed to be changed. A lot of credit has to go to the players who have come in and coincided with this good run. Tyler Golden at right back, Jamie Cook, Angelo Capello, to name 3. Cian Spence, who is a slightly different case because he missed the start of the season through injury rather than team selection, but since he's come in and got back to fitness, he's added an extra dimension as well. Manny Diasaruvwe took a while to get going in terms of goal scoring, but he's been on a great run until he was suspended. So I think a lot of players individually have found their feet after a poor first few weeks where no one was performing. Slowly but surely, the individuals have kind of stacked up where they're starting to perform. I think the difference really was kind of the click of your fingers from Woking to York, Saturday to Tuesday, where they lost 4-0 at home and then they won 1-0 at home. That was the turning point of the season, really, like night and day. Extraordinary turnaround in such a short space of time, but they've really not looked back since that York result. Also, they've gone out of the cup since then, but by and large, they've been excellent. And consistency of team selection is probably another plus. It was all over the place, really, at the start of the season for various reasons, but in certain areas of the pitch, there's been a lot more stability. And any changes now are only kind of, they're not really losing anything in bringing players in or out or switching formations. The team is able to cope with those changes much better, whereas earlier in the season it was just kind of chasing their own tail and not really finding any solutions to the problems.
No, and you've mentioned as well that Millington deserves huge credit for the turnaround as well. What's his mood been like after this great run that they've been on?
I think he's just pleased that the players are showing what they're capable of. He's quite selfless in that he's not he doesn't really talk about himself very much. The pressure was on his shoulders in the early weeks, and he maybe cut a bit of a disconsolate figure at times because he felt the disappointment and frustration among the supporters. And I think he knew that the players were capable of so much more than they were showing. So I think his main satisfaction really comes from the fact that the players are playing much more to their capabilities now. Because, while a lot of the fans might have lost faith in the players and the signings that he made, Millington never seemed to lose that faith, and he always retained the belief that the players that he signed and the players that were already at the club were capable of so much more than they were showing. And I think it's what you've seen over the last maybe 2 or 3 weeks, 3 or 4 weeks, is a few Town fans now starting to be won back around again, where that you get to the point of the 4-0 against Woking, and a lot of fans have kind of thrown their arms in the air and given up on it. It's been a gradual rebuild process of getting some of them back on side. And I don't think that process is finished yet, but I think there is a general acceptance, really, that fair play to Millington. He was kind of in a really bad place, him and the team, but they've worked hard, they've turned it round. But they need to kind of remember what's got them into this good place now. It's the basics of organisation, hard work, sweat and perspiration. And I think Millington knows more than anyone that has to be at the core of, if they're going to keep this run going, they can't, think that they've made it and kick back and float up the table. It's been built on a foundation of hard work, grit and determination and commitment, and that has to be at the centre of everything going forward.
Absolutely. And one player who embodied that at the weekend, Luke Summerfield, you picked him out as your man of the match. What stood out about his performance for you?
I think he kind of offers things that no one else in the side does in terms of just so many facets to his game, in that he can see a pass before he executes it. His awareness and his vision in that central midfield position is so vital in terms of switching play. His range of passing is fantastic, so he can keep it simple when it needs to. And if there's a runner on either flank, he can pick them out, or a through ball to the striker. His attitude is fantastic I think he's 34 now, and he's had his injury problems, but he's shown great determination to get over those injuries more than once and get back in the side. And I'd probably say he's playing as well now as he ever has done for Halifax. I think the vast majority of his time at Halifax has been excellent. He offers a great example to the rest of the players in terms of his determination. You wouldn't think he was the age he is when you look at him play. He's got great enthusiasm, energy, athleticism. I think at the moment he's kind of got a few knocks and niggles, which isn't anything new with him. But his attitude is brilliant. He just wants to be on the pitch. His commitment is great. He's a really good role model in the dressing room for the younger players to look up to. I know Millington thinks the world of him as a player and as a person. And it's just the cornerstone of the team at the moment. It's important he has kind of legs around him, I suppose, who can help him out in that central midfield area. But often in the National League, it's kind of a bit harem-scarum sometimes, and a bit of the game can be a bit scrappy at times, and a bit of head tennis, and neither side keeping possession. And in those situations, a Luke Summerfield is so important to get on the ball, calm things down, get them playing. He's worth his weight in gold for me at the moment. I just hope he can keep injury free, because he's been so unlucky with injuries that have come at cruel times for him when he's been in this kind of form. So it'd be great if he can stay fit, stay on that pitch, and it'll be a big part of the rest of the season if he can do that.
Now, moving on, there was supposed to be a game on Tuesday against Dorking. However, it was postponed, and Dorking did tweet from their official Twitter account, Halifax FC, incapable of doing early pitch inspections, have called off tonight's game. Halifax did respond by saying it's FC Halifax Town. But did they have a point, Tom?
I don't know. I think they've it's not like Dorking have set off. It was obviously fairly close before they did set off, but I think it's a difficult balancing act. If you do it kind of the night before or first thing in the morning, are you giving yourself enough time if the forecast changes or it's not as bad as you think? I think they maybe left it as late as they should have before Dorking set off. That would have been the worst case scenario. I can understand Dorking's frustrations because it's happened 3 times now, twice because of the waterlogged pitch at the Shea. But I think Halifax are in a bit of a difficult position because, it's a council-owned ground, so in a way it's kind of out of Halifax's hands to a certain extent. It's not an easy situation for anyone. Halifax are as frustrated about it as any kind of stakeholder in this situation. But I think by and large they've done what they needed to do. They made an early call. Talking about I wanted it to be earlier, but I'm sure Halifax, balanced the plates as much as they could, span the plates as much as they could in terms of doing everything they can to leave it as late as possible to try and make a positive decision. But in the end, it just wasn't feasible, unfortunately.
Is there any plans long term to do something about the pitch? You mentioned obviously it's council owned, but is there anything in the pipeline to try and resolve this?
The council issued a statement to us this week where they said they continue to discuss long-term options with both clubs, those being Halifax Town and Halifax Panthers, the rugby club, who both use the ground. I think in an ideal world, it'd kind of be ripped up and started again from scratch, because there's a lot of clay underneath the surface, which means that only a certain amount of water can kind of be absorbed before no more sinks into the ground, and there's standing water on the pitch. The council, like a lot of councils in the country, are short of money and are having the budgets cut year after year, so they can only really afford to do kind of superficial work, or not really getting to the bones of the problem, if you like. So if there's any kind of millionaires who sympathise with Halifax Town's position who'd like to donate enough money to remedy the problem, then I'm sure the contribution would be greatly received. But until that time, I can't really see who's going to pay for any kind of permanent solution. You've got three parties there: the council, the rugby club and the football club, none of whom are going to have enough money on their own to solve it. I presume if there is going to be a permanent solution, it's going to need all three parties to kind of knock their heads together. In what scenario that would be, I don't know. But there's certainly a lot of frustration among the Halifax fan base and among the, I spoke to Millington about it this week, and it's not ideal for him as well. And I think the concern is it going to end up negatively impacting the club if the team's fortunes on the pitch, if they're going to keep having to postpone games? We're only in late November. What's going to happen in December, January, February? If it gets worse and worse, how's it going to impact the team on the pitch? And if it does end up harming their chances of a possible playoff push or what have you, then that's the last thing anyone wants.
Absolutely. It's like that scene in the Wrexham documentary where I think it's Ryan Reynolds is on a Zoom and he gets told it's going to be about 300,000 to relay the pitch, and he's like, okay, yeah, fine. So, yeah, like you say, if there's any rich benefactors want to help Halifax out, that'd be much appreciated. Elsewhere then, Shaman, they've been drawn away to Guiseley in the FA Trophy third round. A nice little local derby. Guiseley in a bit of disarray after having parted company with Danny Ellis in the week. Good opportunity for Halifax to progress there?
On the face of it, yeah. I think Guiseley will probably be up for that because, like I say, it's a local derby. There's been a bit of rivalry between the two clubs over the last kind of decade, vying for promotion and what have you. So if Guiseley are in a bit of disarray, then it's a chance for them to kind of put that to one side for a day and get a bit of a scalp. Halifax, I think the fact that they've gone out of the cup earlier than anyone would have wanted, we'll probably be looking at the trophy thinking, right, this is our second chance to have a cup run. They know all about getting success in the FA Trophy, having won it in 2016. I think they're in a much better place now to facilitate a cup run than they were a few weeks ago. They'll hopefully have a lot of players back available for that Guiseley game, so the squad should be in pretty decent shape. So I think Danny Forrest's in temporary charge there, isn't he, at the moment at Guiseley? So that's another angle to it, a former Halifax player. So there's a lot of kind of subplots to it potentially. But if Halifax are in the kind of form they're in now, when that game comes around, then Guiseley have to play very well to to get something.
Absolutely. And moving on to Yeovil at the weekend, then they're currently in 19th, but they are unbeaten in 3. But do you think this represents a good opportunity for Halifax to continue their decent recent form?
I don't know. I think a few weeks ago, yes. But I don't think you can afford to look at it just on face value with Yeovil because they've had a bit of a new manager bounce with Mark Cooper coming in. So I think they're a different prospect to what the league table might suggest. I think he's come in and done really well. I mean, they drew 0-0 at Notts County last time out, which is a fantastic result for them. And that was built really on a lot of grit and determination and a very committed performance. They really dug in and put the bodies on the line and that kind of performance. So Cooper's obviously got them playing. He's brought some players in using his contacts in the game. They've got a couple of decent forwards who could pose a threat. So I think it'll be a tricky match, more difficult than the league table suggests. The good thing for Halifax is to go into it in good shape. They could have a couple of players back available off the injury list. Millington has again said that it's not ideal having the postponement, whereas a lot of fans looking at it might think, well, isn't it a good thing that we've had a chance to rest and we've not had a midweek game? But I think Millington would probably have rather had the game and keep momentum going, whereas having it postponed in a weird way makes it a bit more stop-start is his argument. But I think it's an interesting one with Cooper coming in. It just changes the dynamic of the match really, and the fact that they're on a bit of a resurgence. Maybe a few weeks ago, a point might have been a 2 points dropped for Halifax, but if they go there and get a point, depending on the circumstances of the match, it might not be too bad a result, really.
Fantastic stuff. Well, Tom, thank you very much for joining us, and we'll speak to you again in the future.
You're welcome, mate. No worries.